Chapter 8, Lesson 1, Function Tables. Content target, students will understand to create and find the input and output of a function table. Our language target, how they will do that, students will demonstrate their understanding by creating a functions table with and without input values. Find the output for a function table. A function is a relation that assigns exactly one output value to one input value. The number of wing beats, output, depends on the number of seconds, input. The function rule describes the relationship between each input and output. You can organize the input-output values and the function rule in a function table. In a function, the input value is also known as the independent variable, or our x-axis, or x variable, since it can be any number you choose. The value of the output depends upon the input value, so the output value is known as the dependent variable, and that is our y value. That's what we're trying to find. So in this example, the output is 7 more than the input. Complete a function table for this relation. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at our x value. That's always our input. Our rule, which tells us we're going to add whatever x is plus 7 to get our output, which is our y value. So in this case, 10 is x. So I take out the x value. I put in 10. So I have 10 plus 7. 10 plus 7 is 17. 12 is x, my x value. So I take out the x. I put in 12. 12 plus 7 is 19. And again, x is 14. I take out the variable x, put in 14. I add 7, and 14 plus 7 is 21. Now, in these two function tables, again, the first one here, input is always my x value. This is always my rule. And this will always be my y value, my answer to that. So if x, I look at my rule, x minus 4. So whatever x is, I'm going to take away 4. So here x is 4. So I take out my x value and I put in the number 4. 4 minus 4 equals 0. X is 7. I take out the x value. I put in the 7. Subtract 4. 7 minus 4 is 3. And x is 10. I take out my x value. I put in 10. 10 minus 4, which is 6. So notice that when I do this, the subtract 4 is always the same. That's because it's a rule. The other ones here, that's my x value. So letter B, input is x. Here's my rule. My output value is y. So my rule is 3x. So anytime I have a number and a variable side by side, that means to multiply. So I have multiply 3 times x. So here's my x value. If x is 0, I get 3 times 0. 3 times 0 is 0. If x is 2, I have 3 times x is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And if x is 5, 3 times 5 is 15. Now, sometimes you may have to work backwards. The input and output of a function table can be represented as a set of ordered pairs or a relation. In this lesson, the x values represent the input, the y values represent the output, just like I talked about. In example 3, I want you to find the input of a function table. So when we go from the output to the input, we have to work backwards. In this case, I have to do the opposite of the rule. When I go from output to input, so I have to do the opposite. So here I have 3 times x. So the opposite of that then would be to divide by 3. So since I'm going backwards, I take my output, which is 6. I divide that by 3 because I'm going backwards. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 15, here's my y value. 15 divided by 3, if I'm going backwards here, 15 divided by 3 is 5. That's my x value. 21, I divide that by 3. 21 divided by 3 is 7. So now to make sure that my rule works, 3 times x. If x is 2, 3 times 2 is 6. That is correct. I take out my x, I put in 5. 3 times 5 is 15. That is correct. And for 7, I take 3 times 7, which is 21. So I know that we are correct. 2 more examples. Letter C, we have our rule as 2x minus 1. They've given us the y value. We have to find the x. So I have to work backwards. So I have to look at my rule and think about what I have to do that's opposite. So the opposite of subtract 1 is to add 1. The opposite of multiply by 2 is then to divide by 2. So as I'm working backwards, I have to do the subtract 1 first, which is opposite is add 1, and then do the second part, which is multiply by 2, but the opposite of that is to divide. So here's how this works. I take my y value, 1, and I add 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Let's look at 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. I have 5. 5 plus 1 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So if I put those into my rule now, my x values, we can see if our rule is correct and we have the right answers. So I have 2 times 1 minus 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. If x is 2, I have 2 times 2, which is 4, minus 1 is 3. That is correct. And then I have 2 times 3, which is 6, minus 1 is 5. That is correct. So let's do the same thing with letter D. Our rule is 3x plus 2. So plus 2, what's the opposite of add 2? Subtract 2. The opposite of multiply by 3 is to divide by 3. So I take my 17, I subtract 2, which is 15, and divide that by 3, which is 5. I take 20, here's my value. I subtract 2, 20 minus 2 is 18. 18 divided by 3 is 6. 29. 29 minus 2 is 27. Divided by 3 is 9. So I can see if our rule works if we got the right answers by taking out the x value and putting in my x values over here. So I have 3 times 5 plus 2. 15 plus 2 is 17. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 2 is 20. And 3 times 9 is 27, plus 2 is 29. So the reason we have our X and our Y values so that we can graph our data as well. So here's my input, that's my X value, my output is my Y. Remember that when we write our ordered pairs are X first and then Y on our graph. X is left to right, Y is always up or down. So in this case, it says Brianna bikes 12 miles per hour. The function rule that helps the situation is 12x, where x is the number of hours. So hours. Make the table to find how many hours she has biked when she has gone 12, 36, and 48 miles. So we have 12, 36, and 48 miles. So to find the number of hours, we're working backwards. So I look at the rule, which is times 12. The opposite of that is to divide by 12. So I take 12 divided by 12 is 1. 36 divided by 12 is 3. And 48 divided by 12 is 4. And again, if I rewrite that in my rule box, there's 12 times 1 is 12. 12 times 3 is 36. And 12 times 4 is 48. So now I have to write each one of those as an ordered pair, X to Y. So I have 1, 12. I have 2, 36. Sorry, that's 3, 36. And I have 4, 48. So I start over here on my graph. I start at 0. I go over 1 to the right. And I go up to 12 and make a dot. My next one is 3 to 36. So I start at 0. I go over to 3. And I go up to 36. And my last one is 4 to 48. So I start at 0. I go over to 4. And I go up to 48. Again, you can draw a line through it if you'd like to. I can't draw a straight line, but there you go. There is your graph for the rule 12x.